Okay, so as you guys know, we have been looking at Descartes' meditations. And if you give me just a second, I'm going to do a picture in picture. We have been looking at Descartes' meditations. And so far, we've worked through meditation 1 and meditation 2. We've looked at excerpts, select paragraphs from those chapter meditations in his larger work, also known as the Meditations. That's the short title of his work. We saw how in chapter 1, or meditation 1, he decided that he was going to apply skepticism, doubt to all of his belief because he wanted to get back to the original foundations to rebuild his knowledge structure in a way that could withstand skeptical attack and hence save knowledge from skepticism itself. But of course, the discipline that he was really concerned with was science. In meditation 2, we see that he continues to apply his skepticism and that he discovers that in applying skepticism, he does find a belief that can withstand skeptical attack, and that is his belief that I am, I exist. This is his first item of knowledge. In fact, doubting proves that he exists. We go on to see that he thinks of himself as primarily a thinking thing and talks about the different things thinking things can do. We also saw how he uses the example of a piece of wax to iterate that what he thinks he is perceiving very clearly with his senses and his sensory organs is really best understood with the mind, and understanding what he thinks could be but is not willing to admit are actual external objects. And of course, I told you that the significance of that is that we are seeing that his epistemic theory is that of, or includes that of a priori knowledge, a priori truth, and a priori justification. So we find ourselves now in meditation 3. Let's go ahead and turn our attention to this meditation. All right, so here you can see that it says concerning God and the fact that he exists. So if you look at this claim right here, it looks like he is going to focus on a metaphysical topic. Now remember, he claims in meditation 1 that he wants to save science from skepticism. He wants to see if he can find a belief that can withstand skepticism. He wants to show that knowledge is possible. So why is he talking about God? This makes it seem like the third meditation is going to be primarily metaphysical. Why would he have that when he's supposed to have an epistemological goal in mind? Well, as it turns out, God, as far as Descartes is concerned in the meditations, at least if we look at what he has to say at the surface level, has an important epistemological role in Descartes' attempt to save science, and hence all of knowledge, in fact, from the fires of skepticism. So, of course, if we were in class, we would reread this. So that's what we're going to do. Let's see where Descartes picks up from meditation 2. Now, to make sure that you're listening and not just copying things, I am going to tell you to do some things. I might not write everything that I do and want to see marked on your document, but if I tell you to do something, then make sure that you've done it. Another thing that I want to warn you against is I am perfectly aware that you could do this assignment and let somebody else copy it. Please don't do that. You're only hurting yourself when you do that. Why? Because you're not going to develop an understanding. You're not fully using your powers and your capabilities to experience genuine learning. Also, you're going to be using these notes and the document markup on an open notes quiz that will be at least 30 minutes long the next time we meet as a class. If all you did was copy information either from the end of the video or from a peer, then you really haven't gotten all the lecture points and the context and the iterations that go along with the information that you see me writing or that you see on a document. So make sure that you're really being true and honest with yourself and your learning, being truly engaged. With that said, let's go ahead with this meditation. We are going to read about 3 or 4 paragraphs from meditation 3. Make sure you mark up things that I mark up, and make sure that if I tell you verbally to do something, that you do it, even if I don't do it by hand. All right, so he says, now I will close my eyes, stop up my ears, and withdraw all my senses. I will even blot out from my thinking all images of corporeal things. So I want you to put a triangle over corporeal things, and I want you to remember that when he uses the word corporeal things, I might have touched on this in a previous meditation, that he is talking about external physical objects. Or else, since this is hardly possible, I will dismiss them as empty and false images of nothing at all, and by talking only to myself and looking more deeply within. So notice he's going to go deeply within. He says he's going to what? He's going to withdraw from all his senses, put a triangle over senses, and he says he's going to look more deeply within. Put a triangle over looking, and then put a triangle over deeply within. In other words, he's going to continue to think things through using only his mind. I will attempt little by little to acquire greater knowledge, put a triangle over knowledge, and more familiarity with myself. Okay, so he has the idea that he believes that he exists, that he's a thinking thing, and that this is an item of knowledge, and so that's why he's saying greater knowledge. I am a thinking thing. In other words, something that doubts, affirms, denies, knows a few things, is ignorant of many things, wills, refuses, and also imagines and feels. For as I have pointed out earlier, although those things which I sense or imagine outside of myself are perhaps nothing, nevertheless, I am certain, put a triangle over that the thought processes I call sense experience and imagination, given that they are only certain modes of thinking, do exist within me. Okay, so he's not willing to admit that there actually are external corporeal things yet, not even based on the knowledge that he exists or that he seems to be having sensory experience, and that his mind wants to then infer that there must be external objects which correlate with these thought processes that he is calling sensory experience. He says, I do have these thought processes in me, that I am having a sense experience, and therefore there might be external objects, but he's going to limit himself to saying, okay, well, their thought process, what I'm calling a sensory experience, seeing, a candle in front of me, that's going to be just called a thought process for right now. So he's maintaining his skeptical stance with respect to external objects and lots of other things, lots of other beliefs, except for, of course, his belief that I exist. So then he says, in these few words, I have reviewed everything I truly know, or at least everything that up to this point I was aware that I knew. So in lines 152, I want you to put an underline over a word that is the core concept for this branch. In line 152, what word do you see that names the core concept for our current branch? What is our current branch? It is epistemology. And the core concept for epistemology is what? Knowledge. So go to line 152 and find some version of the word knowledge and put a triangle over that word and underline it. The same thing with 153. He's using a different version of the word, the verb tense for the past. So in line 153, underline that word that names the core concept of epistemology and put a triangle over it as well. He goes on to say that now I will look around more diligently in case there are perhaps other things in me that I have not yet considered. So then he says, I am certain that I am a thinking thing. Let's put brackets around this. What word names a core concept that we have come across so far in our studies of Descartes' thinking in the Meditations? I hope you said the word certain. Underline the word certain and put a triangle over it. But if that is the case, do I not also know what is required for me to be certain about something? Okay, so in line 155, what word again do you see that names the core concept for this unit? I want you to find that word in line 155 and underline it and then put a triangle over it. Also, I forgot to say that we are going to be bracketing statements that actually constitute an argument that we have inside this paragraph. This is going to be a premise, so write P for premise. Now, technically speaking, remember that arguments are comprised only of statements, not questions, so we're not going to bracket this sentence with the question mark. He goes on to say, there is, to be sure, nothing in this first instance of knowledge other than a certain, clear, and distinct perception of what I am affirming. So that's a statement that we'll be interested in right there. Put brackets around it. We're going to number this as statement 2. Make sure your statement numbers are above and at the beginning of a given statement. And this is also going to function as a premise in the argument that's in this paragraph. Again, you see a version of the word that names the core concept for this unit. Underline that word here in 156 and put a triangle over it. And then there's another word that we already underlined and put a concept triangle over. It's a word that you should have put a concept triangle over in statement 1. It appears again in statement 2. So in other words, statement 2, or at least there's more than this many statements, because there's a statement up here and there's a statement right here. So this is actually the third statement. This is the fourth statement, but these are just contextually relevant. Okay. The argument that we're trying to excavate from this passage, when it comes to the argument, these statements right here, these two statements are merely contextually relevant. We're looking for the ones that are logically relevant in terms of either providing support for a conclusion or functioning as a conclusion as a result of some premises. So back to line 156 and 157, or that statement that is captured in the second set of brackets. This is the second statement that is a premise. Let's put it that way. And again, there are two words that name really important concepts in this passage. One word we noted as early as this statement, and another word we noted was in here. So put triangles over those two words. Now, some new words that we're going to come across that are really important, at least for Descartes and his project, are going to be that of clear and distinct. Notice that he said a certain, clear, and distinct. We are not going to put a triangle over certain here because he's not really using certain in the way that he used certain here. He just means a particular, clear, and distinct idea. But notice that what here in the question he's saying, don't I also know what is required for me to be certain about something? So he's asking a question about certainty. And remember, a version of our ultimate question is it possible to be certain that any of our beliefs are true? So I also want you to put a triangle over that core concept, that word that names that core concept here in the question in line 155. Remember, you can always pause me. If we were in class live, I would stop and wait like 3 or 5 seconds so that you could catch up, or you would see me putting triangles over everything. Okay, so you can pause the video if you need to. All right, so then we've got, and obviously this would not be enough for me to be certain about the truth of the matter if it could ever happen that something I perceived just as clearly and distinctly was false. So then we are going to have a bracket here, and then we're going to have a bracket right here. So this is what you call a conditional statement. It's an if-then statement. If X then Y, it's just reverse. Y if X. We're not going to chop it in half, but this is also another premise. So let's number it 3 and write a P for premise. Here we see again a word that names a fundamental and powerful concept in his reasoning. Put a triangle over it here at the end of line 157. And then in line 158, we see a word from our definition for knowledge. Look at this, about the truth of the matter. What word in this phrase names an important concept within the definition of our main concept for this unit? Underline it and put a triangle over it. All right, so then we're also going to go ahead and put a triangle over perceived. And then we're going to go ahead and put a triangle and underline the words clearly and distinctly again. False is the opposite of a word in 158, so I want you to put a triangle over that as well. And by the way, I just gave you a clue as to what you should underline and put a triangle over in line 158. And so it seems to me, notice the word so. So tells us that a conclusion is coming. So it seems to me that I can now propose the following general rule. So this is statement 4, and it's a conclusion. All those things that I perceive, so put a triangle over perceive, and then clearly and distinctly are true. Notice that he says a general rule. Let's go ahead and put a triangle over that as well. In other words, he thinks he's coming up with an epistemological rule. All those things I perceive very clearly and distinctly are true. So what word do you think I want you to put a triangle over prior to clearly and distinctly? And what word do you think I want you to put a triangle over at the end of true? I just gave you the answer. I was going to say at the end of this statement. Okay, so what we've done is we've excavated an argument where Descartes uses just his mind and the ideas in his mind to think about those ideas and what they mean and how they relate to each other to arrive at this conclusion. And he comes at this conclusion that he can use this epistemological rule, all those things I perceive very clearly and distinctly are true, as a way to decide whether or not he can claim that a certain belief is adequately or properly justified and hence counts as an item of knowledge. So he's not saying that here's some more beliefs that I can say are true. He's saying here's a rule, and a rule is a belief, but it's a belief about a rule. In other words, he believes he has properly argued for and logically shown that this is an epistemological rule he can use. And he comes up with this rule of clarity and distinctness by starting from what? What he takes to be an item of knowledge. I am certain that I am a thinking thing. So remember, he discovered that item of knowledge from meditation 2, and then he uses his a priori thinking, just his mind, to think about the meaning of these words and lets that flow out logically, just using his mind all the way to this conclusion. So with that said, we need to take some notes. So find your notebook paper. I want you to have a brand new sheet of notebook paper. And on this brand new sheet of notebook paper, and you want to follow my instructions because this is going to help you do better on the quiz. Trust me, you need a brand new sheet of notebook paper. Don't put it on the other side of your meditation 2 notes. Write meditation 3, and then we'll just write meditation 3, okay? So you will be uploading this to show me that you engaged with the lesson, and you will do it for a grade, and you'll also upload this. So what I want you to write down is that RD, that's Rene Descartes, claims to have discovered a new item of knowledge and that item is an epistemic rule, or we can say an epistemological rule. So epistemological here means a rule that has to do with knowing. That's supposed to be an arrow, by the way. It came out horribly. Okay, and so this is okay. So then we've got this is argued for in lines 152 through 160, and he wants to use it. I should say will use it as an epistemic, or we could say an epistemological. That says epistemological, epistemological, bridge to rescuing more knowledge from skepticism. And right here, really, this is what is I want to count as significance. Significance. Okay. This here is your iteration. That's iteration. Remember, you can always pause the video to take more notes. All right, so that ends this video. I'm going to create another link, and you're going to submit this and your notes for this. And then keep in mind that you have at least 2 more videos and 2 more document markups and 2 more sheets of notes to upload. But in the next link, you're going to upload a picture of this in full in its entirety to where I can see it clearly. And you're going to upload a picture of these notes. And then after that, you will have another video and some more uploads to do.